Hello, this is a video for Karazhan Flex Raid on Ascension Classless server. Short disclaimer, the devs occasionally patch and rebalance the encounters, so some things may change after I post this video. I'll try and update the description with any major changes. Okay, first optional boss is Adaman and his horse Midnight. After a few seconds, Adaman will spawn. Make sure your tank is fast to pick him up or DPS could die. Puts stacking armor reduction on the tank so you can tank swap if you want, but he doesn't hit very hard, so we usually just run with one tank. Also, he puts up a curse that increases mischance, so you can dispel that. When Midnight gets low, they merge, so get ready to pick him up again. In this phase, he'll charge anyone more than like 10 yards away from him, so be close to him. And Shadow Horses are going to be constantly running around the arena in this phase. If they hit someone, they explode, does a bunch of damage. Animal boss hardly counts as a boss, but I included it anyway. Just kill enough trash and he'll spawn. There's not really any mechanics. Maiden is a tank and spank. If you stand too close to her, she'll interrupt you. Desperate Prayer is a big beam cast that she does. If it's doing too much damage to your raid, you can run into the big beam at the start of the cast, and then go behind a pillar to avoid it. Also, Repentance is a stun she does occasionally. Just run into Consecrate before she casts it, and it'll remove the stun. Moroes is the first boss you need to kill on your way to Prince. First phase is ads. 2 ads on the left are shackleable, and the 2 on the right are immune. They'll also dispel any shackles in range, so pull them away. Have 1 tank on Moroes and 1 tank on the ads. Watch out for circles of ghosts that appear, they'll blow up after a few seconds. Have the ad tank put vigilance on the Moroes tank because Moroes will stun the tank and go to whoever is second on threat. When Moroes gets to like 70%, the raid will start getting a food debuff every 30 seconds or so. Everyone should have a designated spot where they can spam click and cycle through food until they get the food they need. At 30%, he enrages and hits harder. You can disarm him if he's doing too much damage. The main mechanic that applies to all opera fights is a spotlight that pops up every 20 seconds. Stand in the beam until it turns white, and it'll tell you what ability you can't use. If you cast it, you'll get a stacking stat reduction and drop a poison cloud that stays for a long time. When the consecration looking debuff goes away, you can cast that spell again. For Romulo and Julianne, kick Julianne's heals, spell steal their buffs, have a tank second on threat for Romulo, and tank swap Romulo every time the tank has 3 stacks of his Mortal Strike poison. Make sure they die at the same time in phase 3. For Wizard of Oz, kill Toto first. This will enrage Dorothy, but that doesn't really matter too much. Then kill Tin Man, he cleaves. Then Lion, he fears. Then Straw Man, he gets stunned by fire damage. Then Dorothy, she doesn't have an aggro table. Phase 2, just avoid the Cyclones and kill the Crone. Big Bad Wolf does an AoE fear, armor shreds on the tank so you can do a tank swap when it gets too high. Every minute goes after a random raid member. You get a move speed buff, so just kite him around the edge of the arena. Melee should run out prior to him doing this, since otherwise he'll just instantly one-shot you. For Curator, have 2 tanks, make sure they have a good lead on threat, just taunt back and forth. He's going to Hateful Bolt the number 2 and number 3 on threat, which will include a DPS. So if you're high on threat, don't life tap like crazy. All DPS should kill Sparks during this part. They use up his mana when they spawn. Occasionally, he's going to target someone for termination, which after a short delay will send a big explosion towards them. You can organize a nice system for this, or spread out like we do. When he gets less than 400,000 mana, you need to blow up a crystal with a termination explosion. The tank can just move him onto the crystal to make this part easy. When he evocates, he'll take 400% increased damage, so ignore Sparks and just blow him up. If you didn't manage to kill a crystal prior to evocate, he'll heal instead, at which point you should probably just wipe or reset. So repeat this until he gets to like 20%, at which point he enrages and he'll start hitting the tank really hard. He also stops spawning Sparks, but he will continue the explosions. Illhoof. Have one tank pick up the boss and kill wreck, and the other tank against the far wall where portals will spawn, picking up small imps but not killing them. Kill wreck should be prioritized and burst down. When kill wreck dies, Illhoof takes increased damage and can't heal from imps dying, so bring the imps over and cleave and AoE them down while focusing the boss. When demon chains spawn, focus them while cleaving the boss. Kill wreck will spawn again, just kill him and repeat until the end. Aran has no aggro table, but you'll need a tank for Phase 2. In Phase 1, have people assigned to interrupt fireballs and frostbolts. If you stand too close, he'll interrupt you. When Blizzard is up, stay out of it. When he casts Flame Wreath, don't move. When he casts Arcane Explosion, immediately run to the outer wall and dispel the slow if you can. When he runs low on mana, he'll poly everyone, followed up by a Pyroblast. Just heal through it. At around 40% health, he spawns water elementals, which need to be focused down by DPS. When he gets to like 10%, he'll put a shield up that reduces damage taken by 99%. That'll last for like 45 seconds. Have everyone stack right on top of him. He's going to start filling 3/4 of the room with beams, which telegraph where explosions will happen. Go to the middle of the safe segment and you'll be fine. Have the tank pick up adds, which mana burn whoever they hit. When the shield goes down, you can start DPSing him while continuing to dodge explosions. Chess is a bit finicky on this server. After a little bit, you'll only be able to move on white spaces. All attacks will hit every piece, so be careful where you're positioned. Try to rush down the enemy king, and only bring in your king when most of the enemy damage dealers are dead. Prince is a 3-phase fight with a lot of health. Tank him against the wall and have the raid stand together in the arena, off to the side but not too close to the door. He will enfeeble people down to 1 HP and cast Shadow Nova, which does a knockback. If you tank him where I do, there's a notch on the wall to the left where melee can run if they don't want to run all the way out. Infernals will occasionally fall from the sky, which should be called out by someone who can see them. He also glows them up with a wave of fire called Doom. Don't be between him and any Infernal. At 70%, he'll go into Phase 2 and start hitting harder while putting a stacking armor reduction on the tank. Right before Phase 3, I usually ice block it off. He will occasionally put someone in the Shadow Realm where a bunch of 1 health enemies will yank you around. After clicking 3 crystals that are in there, you'll get teleported back out. Try to come back right after an Enfeeble happens so you don't spawn with 1 health right into an Infernal. Death and Decay sometimes gets placed wherever the Shadow Realm person is, so move the group out of it if it's on them. At 30%, he'll go to Phase 3, he blows up every Infernal and will stop using Shadow Nova and Enfeeble, but continues to use Shadow Realm. His axes will fly around targeting random people. Be ready to use tank cooldowns if a healer gets put into the Shadow Realm. Netherspite alternates between the beam phase and the banish phase. In the beam phase, the tank takes the red beam, a DPS takes the blue beam and switches with another DPS after about 15 seconds, and the healer takes the green beam. If you're standing on a beam but it's not going to you, try jumping and that should fix it. In the banish phase, blue orbs will spawn, which then turn green, and then turn red and shoot at you. Everyone needs to run in little circles or ovals to avoid the explosions from the red orbs. Netherspite will choose random players and breathe on them, which will knock back anyone in a cone around the targeted player. Eventually, the orbs go away and portals will spawn showing where the next beams will come from. If at some point you took a beam in the previous beam phase, you will get a debuff that prevents you from using that color beam. Have the second tank ready to pick him up in the red beam, 2 new DPS to pick up the blue beam, and a second healer to pick up the green beam. For Nightbane, have the ranged and healers stacked tightly in the corner, and tank him so that he faces the outer wall. When a charred earth appears on the group, move to a spot slightly outside of it. Have Tremor Totems and or Berserker Rage ready for when he fears. If you need to move him to make room for more charred earth, do it quickly since he both tail swipes and cleaves. In Phase 2, have everyone stack together until adds start spawning. Everyone except the tank should then run away and start AoEing the skeletons. The tank will be taking a huge amount of fire damage, so any and all cooldowns should be used. When he lands, he resets aggro and usually targets a healer, so be ready to taunt him immediately. Be careful not to do it too early though, or you'll taunt him before the aggro reset happens. These two phases alternate until he dies. Thanks for watching. I hope this guide helps you get loot. If you have any questions about anything, let me know in the comments or PM me in Discord, which I'll have in the description.